The photographer called me at 11:43 on a Thursday night, 3 days after my wedding, and asked if my wife had ever told me about the man standing behind her in the church. At first, I laughed, thought it was some sick joke from a bloke trying to go viral online. But the silence on the other end of the line made my stomach tighten before he finally whispered, "Mate, I don't think he was supposed to be there." Rain hammered against the apartment windows in Southbank while I stared at the wedding album spread across the kitchen counter. My wife, Ava, was asleep down the hallway. Soft breathing, peaceful, untouched by the panic beginning to crawl through my chest. The photographer's name was Declan Moore, mid-50s, Gold Coast accent. Spoke like a man trying hard not to sound afraid. "I noticed it while editing," he said. "Didn't want to mention it over email." I rubbed my face. "What exactly did you see?" There was a pause. "In every third or fourth photo, there's a man watching her." I almost hung up, but then Declan sent the image. The file appeared on my phone instantly. I opened it expecting some lighting trick or accidental guest caught in frame. Instead, my throat went dry. It was taken outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne, just after the ceremony. Ava was smiling at me, hand on my chest, bouquet pressed against my suit, and behind her, half hidden beside a sandstone pillar, stood a tall man in a dark coat staring directly at her, not at us, at her. His face was blurry, but not naturally blurry. It looked smeared, distorted, like the camera itself had struggled to focus on him. I zoomed in. My heart stopped. Ava was looking at him too. Tiny detail, barely noticeable. But while everyone else faced the camera, her eyes had shifted sideways toward the stranger, like she knew he was there. Declan called again 2 minutes later. "There's more," he said quietly. I didn't answer straight away. "You still there, mate?" "Yeah." "You need to ask your wife who he is." The bedroom door creaked behind me before I could respond. Ava stood there wearing one of my old hoodies, hair messy from sleep. She looked beautiful in the soft apartment light, but when she saw the photo on my screen, all the color drained from her face. For 3 full seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "Why do you have that?" Every instinct in my body fired at once. "You know him." "No, that's not a question." She walked forward quickly and grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it away. "Lachlan," she snapped, voice trembling now. "Delete it." That scared me more than anything. Not anger, fear. I stood slowly from the chair. "Who is he?" She looked toward the hallway like she wanted to escape the apartment entirely. I thought he was gone. The words barely came out. A cold pressure spread through my chest. "Gone where?" She swallowed hard. "You need to promise you won't contact him." I stared at her. "Ava, who the hell is he?" Before she could answer, another message came through from Declan. 3 new photos. I opened the first one. Reception dance floor. Ava laughing in my arms. The same man stood near the DJ booth. Second photo. Outside Crown Casino later that night. He was across the street watching us. Third photo. Taken at the hotel after midnight. My blood froze. It showed the hallway outside our suite. The man stood directly beside our door. And this time, his face wasn't blurry. I heard Ava choke behind me. The phone nearly slipped from my hand as I stared at the stranger's expression. Not angry, not jealous, smiling, like he already knew something I didn't. Then I noticed the timestamp. The photo had been taken at 2:14 a.m., exactly 37 minutes before Ava slipped out of bed and told me she was going downstairs for water. I turned toward her slowly. She was crying now, not loudly. The kind of crying that starts long before the tears appear. "Ava," my voice cracked. "What happened that night?" She looked me dead in the eyes and said the one thing I never expected. "He's the reason my last boyfriend disappeared." The room suddenly felt too small to breathe in. Rain still hammered the windows, but now every sound inside the apartment felt louder. The hum of the fridge, the ticking clock above the stove, Ava's uneven breathing while she stood there crying in my hoodie like a stranger wearing my wife's face. I couldn't process what she'd just said. What do you mean disappeared? Ava wiped her eyes fast, like panic was catching up with her. Lachlan, please. Lower your voice. Answer me. She looked toward the front door again. That tiny movement didn't escape me, like she thought someone might already be outside. My ex was named Daniel Mercer, she whispered. We dated 4 years ago in Brisbane. I folded my arms tight across my chest. And he became obsessive after I left him. Obsessive how? Her jaw tightened, tracking my phone, turning up at work, sitting outside my apartment for hours. I felt anger rising now. Why didn't you go to police? I did. And they warned him. The silence after that sat heavy between us. I knew enough about these situations to understand how often warnings meant absolutely nothing. Ava moved closer slowly. Then one night, he vanished. Vanished. No calls, no bank activity, no social media, nothing. I stared at her. And you think the bloke in the photos is connected? I know he is. Every nerve in my body tightened. Who is he? But before she could answer, somebody knocked on the apartment door. 3 slow knocks, not loud, controlled. Ava froze instantly. I'd never seen fear hit someone so physically before. Her shoulders locked, her pupils widened. She actually stopped breathing for a second. Another 3 knocks echoed through the apartment. I moved toward the door automatically, but Ava grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt. No. What? Don't open it. Ava, please. Her voice cracked badly now. The knocking stopped, then came silence. I looked through the peephole. Nobody there. Empty hallway. But something felt wrong immediately. The lift doors at the far end were still open, like someone had just stepped out. I opened the door anyway. The corridor was empty except for a small brown envelope lying on the carpet directly outside our apartment. My stomach dropped. Ava saw it and backed away instantly. Don't touch it. Too late. I'd already picked it up. No stamp. No writing. Just sealed shut. Inside was a single printed photograph. Ava sitting alone at a cafe on Chapel Street 2 weeks before our wedding. The photo had clearly been taken from inside a parked car across the road. I turned it over slowly. 3 words were written on the back in black marker. Ask her about Elliot. Ava covered her mouth the second she read it. That reaction told me everything. Who's Elliot? She didn't answer. Ava. Still nothing. My voice hardened. Who the hell is Elliot? Her legs finally gave out beneath her. She sat down hard against the kitchen cabinets, shaking violently now. He was Daniel's friend. I crouched in front of her. And? He disappeared too. The blood drained from my face. What are you talking about? They both disappeared. A horrible thought crept into my head then. Not because of what she said, because of how she said it. Like she blamed herself. I stood up slowly. What did you do? Her eyes snapped toward me instantly. Hurt exploded across her face. You think I killed them? I don't know what to think. She started crying harder now. I never touched them. Then why are people following you? I don't know. That's bullshit. She looked away, and that silence told me more than any confession could. I suddenly remembered something tiny from 6 months earlier. We were driving near Brighton Beach when a silver Holden started following us through traffic. Ava noticed it immediately, told me to take random turns until it disappeared. At the time she laughed it off, said she was paranoid from an old relationship. Now my chest felt tight thinking about it. How long has this been happening? She whispered the answer. 3 years. I actually stepped backward. 3 years. I thought it stopped after I moved to Melbourne. And you married me without telling me any of this? I was trying to protect you. That nearly made me laugh. Protect me. Too late for that. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Dan Noonan number. A text message. I opened it. There was another photo attached. This one had been taken tonight. My entire body went cold. It showed our apartment building from across the street. The timestamp read 2 minutes ago. And standing beside the entrance doors was Ava. except Ava was still inside the apartment with me. I looked up at her slowly, while my pulse thundered in my ears. Then the next message arrived. "You're married?" The wrong woman. I read the message 3 times before my brain accepted what my eyes were seeing. "You're married the wrong woman." My hands had started shaking. Ava stood frozen near the kitchen bench, tears streaking down her face, while I stared at the photo of someone who looked exactly like her, standing outside our building 2 minutes earlier. Same blonde hair, same oversized gray hoodie, same height. But the woman in the photo was smiling. Ava wasn't. I slowly turned the screen toward her. "What the hell is this?" The second she saw it, she looked physically sick. "No," she whispered. "You tell me. That's impossible. Stop saying that." I stormed toward the apartment windows and looked down at the street 13 floors below. Melbourne traffic crawled through the wet streets under neon reflections and rain haze. A tram rattled past Flinders Street. Nobody stood outside the building entrance now, but my gut told me someone had been there, watching us. I spun back toward Ava. "Call the police." Her eyes widened instantly. "No." "Why not?" "Because if they come here, things get worse." "You honestly expect me to believe this is normal?" She wrapped both arms around herself tightly. "Lachlan, there are things I never told you. That much is obvious." I hated the sharpness in my own voice, but fear was beginning to overpower everything else. Not fear of some stalker. Fear of her. Ava noticed it immediately. I saw the exact second it broke her heart. "You think I'm lying to you? I think I married someone I don't know." The words landed hard. She looked away, devastated. Then quietly said, "My real name isn't Ava." Everything inside me stopped. The rain outside seemed to disappear completely. "What?" She swallowed slowly. "It's Emily." I laughed once in disbelief. "You're joking. I legally changed it 2 years ago. Why? Because someone was looking for me." I felt my chest tighten harder. "Who?" But she didn't answer straight away. Instead, she walked toward the hallway and disappeared into the bedroom. I followed instantly. She dropped to her knees beside the bed and dragged out an old black storage box I'd never seen before. Her hands trembled while unlocking it. Inside were passports, 3 of them, different names, different hair colors, different states: Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, all her. I stared down at them while something cold crept through my stomach. "This isn't real." "It is. You've been hiding this the entire time." I wanted a normal life. I picked up one passport. The photo showed her with dark brown hair instead of blonde name. Olivia Hart. Issue. Date. 2023. What is this? After Daniel disappeared, someone started following me. That doesn't explain fake identities. They weren't fake. Then what were they? She looked directly at me. Escape plans. A hard knock suddenly slammed against the apartment door again. This time louder, aggressive. Both of us jumped. Another knock hit immediately after. Then a male voice echoed through the apartment. "Police." Ava's face drained white. "They found me." I moved toward the front door instinctively, but she grabbed my arm hard. "Don't trust them." "What?" "Please, Lachlan." The knocking became violent now. "Victoria Police." "Open the door." I looked through the peephole. 2 officers stood outside, but something felt off instantly. No marked uniforms, plain dark jackets. One of them noticed movement behind the peephole and smiled slightly. Not professionally, personally. My pulse exploded. "Step away from the door," Ava whispered. I turned back toward her. "What did you do?" Before she could answer, the man outside spoke again. And the second Ava heard his voice, she nearly collapsed. "Oh my God!" "What?" Terror flooded her eyes. "That's Elliot." Every muscle in my body locked. The missing friend. The man supposedly gone for years. I looked through the peephole again carefully. The taller man outside lifted his head slightly toward the door camera and smiled. Not a friendly smile, the kind that says the game is already over. Then he spoke softly enough that only someone standing close could hear. "Emily." He doesn't know about the lake yet, does he? Ava started crying instantly. Real panic, real horror. I backed away from the door slowly. My entire understanding of my wife was collapsing piece by piece. What lake? I whispered. Ava looked at me with absolute dread. Then the man outside laughed quietly and said, "Ask your wife how Daniel Mercer died." For a moment, nobody moved. The apartment felt frozen in time, while Elliot stood outside the door like a man enjoying theater. Ava, or Emily, looked completely shattered now. Tears streamed silently down her face, while she stared at the floor like she already knew everything was over. I couldn't even recognize my own voice anymore. "Did you kill him?" She shook her head instantly. No, but it wasn't convincing. Not because she sounded guilty, because she sounded terrified. The knocking stopped altogether. Silence filled the hallway outside. That somehow felt worse. I stepped away from her slowly. How many lies have there been? Lachlan, please, don't. My chest hurt now. Physically hurt. 3 days ago I married this woman, believing I knew every scar, every fear, every piece of her life. Now I didn't even know her name. You need to tell me the truth right now. She wiped her face with shaking hands. Daniel wasn't supposed to die. The words hit like a car crash. I felt the air leave my lungs. Outside the apartment, Elliot laughed softly again, after hearing her confession through the door. "There it is," he called out. "Told you he deserved the truth." I looked at Ava in disbelief. "What did you do?" She broke completely then. "He attacked me." The room went silent except for rain against glass. "We were at a cabin near Lake Eildon," she whispered. "Daniel had been drinking for hours. He knew I was leaving him." He snapped. I stared at her without blinking. He locked my phone in his car. Wouldn't let me leave. He kept saying if he couldn't have me, nobody would. Her breathing became uneven. Elliot was there too. He tried calming him down. Outside the door came another amused chuckle. "Funny version of events," Elliot muttered. Ava ignored him. He grabbed me by the throat near the water. I couldn't breathe. Tears streamed harder down her face now. I hit him with a rock. I felt sick listening. He fell backwards into the lake. The apartment suddenly felt freezing cold. And then what? She looked at me with dead, exhausted eyes. He never came back up. I ran both hands over my face slowly. Jesus Christ. Elliot spoke again from the hallway. "Tell him the rest, Emily." She shut her eyes immediately. That reaction terrified me more than the story itself. "What rest?" Ava whispered the answer. "We left him there." A hollow ringing filled my ears. "You what?" We panicked. "You left a body in a lake?" "He was dead. You don't know that." Her face collapsed again. "I know." For several seconds, I couldn't even think straight. Then another thought slammed into me. If Daniel died, then who's been following you? Silence. Ava looked toward the door slowly, and suddenly I understood. Not Daniel Elliot. The entire time, I marched toward the entrance, rage finally overpowering fear, and ripped the door open. Elliot stood there smiling calmly. Tall, mid-40s, expensive coat soaked with rainwater, sharp blue eyes that looked completely emotionless. No police officers, no backup, just him. He studied me carefully. "You must be Lachlan." Before I could speak, Ava screamed from behind me. "Get out." Elliot ignored her entirely. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said quietly. "Daniel survived that night. Every cell in my body went cold." Behind me, Ava stopped breathing. Elliot reached into his coat pocket slowly. I tensed immediately, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a photograph, old, water-damaged. He handed it to me. The second I saw it, my stomach dropped. It showed Daniel Mercer alive. Older now, bearded, thin. The timestamp on the bottom corner read 6 days ago. I looked up slowly. "That's impossible." Elliot smiled faintly. "No, mate. What's impossible is what your wife did after she realized he survived." Ava started sobbing violently behind me. Elliot's eyes finally shifted toward her for the first time. "You should have told him about Sydney." My pulse exploded. What happened in Sydney? Neither of them answered immediately. Then Elliot said the words that destroyed whatever trust remained in my marriage. Ask her why Daniel disappeared for real this time. Ava couldn't even look at me anymore. She stood near the kitchen, shaking so badly she had to grip the counter to stay upright, while Elliot waited calmly by the open apartment door, like a man who'd rehearsed this moment for years. I stared at the photograph in my hand. Daniel Mercer, alive 6 days ago. Everything inside me felt hollow. What happened in Sydney? I asked again. Ava finally spoke through tears. After the lake, Daniel disappeared for months. I thought he was dead. Elliot folded his arms quietly. Until he came back, she nodded weakly. He found me in Sydney last year. Different apartment, different name. I thought I'd escaped him. Her breathing hitched hard. But he found me anyway. I looked between them both. Why didn't you tell police? Elliot actually laughed. Because Daniel didn't want revenge, he said. He wanted ownership. Ava's face tightened in horror. He kept saying surviving the lake meant we belonged to him now, Elliot continued, especially her. The room felt poisoned listening to it. I turned toward Ava slowly. Then what happened? She looked completely broken now. He abducted me, every muscle in my body locked. For 2 days he kept me inside a house near Parramatta. He barely slept, barely ate, just talked. Her voice trembled violently. He said we were connected forever now. Said if I ever married anyone else, he'd destroy them. My stomach turned. And then, Ava covered her mouth before answering. I stabbed him. Silence, pure silence. Even Elliot stopped smiling. He attacked me again, she whispered. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen. Was he dead? I don't know. That answer hit harder than a confession. Elliot stepped forward quietly. I helped her clean the scene. I snapped toward him. Why would you help? Something dark crossed his face then. Because Daniel destroyed everyone around him. He looked toward Ava. And because I loved her too. Ava shut her eyes immediately. There it was. The final hidden truth. Not just fear, not just guilt. A triangle of obsession that had rotted all three of them from the inside out. You were sleeping with him, I said quietly. She didn't answer, didn't need to. Elliot nodded once. Years ago. I laughed bitterly under my breath. The sound barely felt human. 3 days into marriage, and I was standing inside a life built entirely on lies. Then Elliot reached into his pocket again. This time he pulled out a mobile phone. He tossed it onto the kitchen counter. A missed call notification glowed on the screen. Contact. Daniel Mercer. Called 23 minutes ago. Ava saw it and nearly collapsed. No. Elliot's voice became very soft. He's alive, Emily. The apartment spun around me. No chance, I whispered. He survived Sydney too. Ava began crying uncontrollably now. Real terror. The kind that strips years off someone's face instantly. Then the phone started ringing. All three of us stared at it. Daniel Mercer calling. Nobody moved. The sound echoed through the apartment again and again, while rain battered Melbourne outside. Finally, Ava stepped forward with trembling hands and answered on speaker. For 2 seconds there was only static. Then a man's voice spoke calmly. Congratulations on the wedding. Every hair on my arms rose instantly. His voice sounded relaxed. Smiling, Ava couldn't breathe. Daniel continued softly. I watched the ceremony from the cathedral. I felt physically ill. You looked beautiful, Em. Please, Ava whispered. You promised we'd never lie to each other again. Elliot grabbed the counter tightly beside me, suddenly nervous for the first time all night. Then Daniel laughed quietly. I'm downstairs, by the way. My blood froze solid. Ava made a choking sound. The line disconnected. For one horrifying second, nobody moved. Then the apartment intercom rang. I walked toward the window in a daze and looked down 13 floors east to the street below. A lone man stood beside the building entrance under the rain-dark coat, hands in pockets, looking directly up at our apartment. Even from that distance, I could see him smiling. Behind me, Ava whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. He never wanted revenge. I turned slowly. Tears streamed down her face as she stared at the man below. He wanted his family back. Then the apartment lights went out.